Hey guys, welcome to the show, 888-659-3727. Great to be live tonight. You are listening to and watching The Bald Truth, self-help radio for guys, and unfortunately for girls who have to deal with this bullshit. If you're new to the broadcast, don't know who I am, why I'm here, I'm a consumer advocate for men and women dealing with hair loss. I am the author of The Bald Truth and The Truth About Women's Hair Loss. I also happen to be the founder of the American Hair Loss Association and the International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons. Now, that's really weird. Now, I know that's a mouthful. And I just had to hang up on somebody. And a lot of guys who are just tuning in for the first time are like, wait a second, especially if they're watching the show. Well, actually, only if they're watching the show. They're like, this guy seems to have hair in his head. Why is he doing a hair loss show? Well, you know, I kind of liken it to being a trainer, going to a dentist with black teeth. You don't want to go to a dentist with black teeth, right? You don't want to go to a trainer to help you get your body in the shape, and for him to be a complete slob, out of shape, inflexible, weak, unable to do what he's telling you to do. Now, I have been fortunate enough to stop the progression of my hair loss, or at least slow it down considerably, using FDA-approved medication. I have been fortunate enough to make the right decisions along the way when I have been, faced with exactly what you guys are faced with. I started losing my hair at a very young age. And back in the day, back in 1987, when I discovered that I was losing my hair, it fucked me up. It freaked me out. I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know where to turn. But I did find out pretty quickly that every product and service, just about, especially back in those days, that claimed to stop, treat, or prevent hair loss was complete bullshit. That's what I found out pretty early. I was lucky enough not to have to, find out the hard way as far as making the wrong move and having an archaic surgical hair restoration procedure back in, 87, 88, 89, the days when I was really doing my initial research. But what I chose to do is do my due diligence, figure out exactly what was happening in the industry at the time, what worked, what didn't work. And, sadly, for me, I had to wait several years before I was really able to treat my hair loss. Now, back in the day, minoxidil, or the brand name Rogaine, for hair loss was not even approved by the FDA for that application for hair loss. So I had a doctor who was compounding or prescribing, giving me a prescription to take to a compounding pharmacy to basically crush up Lanatin pills, which is minoxidil, mix it up with alcohol and maybe, I think, some propylene glycol at the time. And I was smearing this white gunky stuff on my scalp. That's how I started. That's what I had. You young guys today who are complaining about what you have to deal with as far as the treatments that we have available for hair loss, let me tell you, you guys are so lucky because there are 2 FDA-approved treatments that we know work. There is an FDA-approved treatment that could be used off-label that we know can work. There are incredible hair transplants being performed today that we know work for the right candidate. And last but not least, even though you guys don't want to deal with it, especially the young guys, there are incredible hair pieces out there that can be life-changing if you want to go down that route. There are more options today to truly treat your hair loss than there ever have been in the history of hair loss. So when I go online, usually when I do the live show to read what's happening in the forum, and I did that today, and I see some of what's happening, some of the complaints, some of the bitterness and angry people that post online. And I certainly understand it because I was one of those guys. You need to know that we are in a better position today than we ever have been when it comes to the prevention and treatment of hair loss. Now, if you're new to the show, we are not here to sell you anything. I have nothing to sell. You want to buy one of my books? Go ahead. Go to Amazon.com. You can pick one up. But I have to tell you, they are extremely outdated. And what's my publisher, probably doesn't want me to say this, but the truth is, the book's still selling. I have not. I've written one rewrite in the last 17 years, a second edition, and that's it. Have not had to write any more. Now, I'm not saying that I won't, but the truth is I've been able to get my message out there through this broadcast, through my other resources, and frankly, the book's still selling. So, it is still a great resource for those who are just learning about hair loss, just discovering the fact that they're losing their hair. A lot of the stuff that's written in that book still holds true today, especially about surgical hair restoration, as far as what to avoid and all the other nonsense out there. Because sadly, not much has changed. But what has changed is the fact that we have more options, and also surgical hair restoration has really evolved to a degree that I always knew that it would. But today's state-of-the-art surgical hair restoration is just, honestly, if it's done if you're the right candidate, you go to the right surgeon who has the right team, utilizing the right equipment, it could be an incredible life-changing and life-altering procedure. But the key is, always remember, surgery is the last resort. And again, we're not here to sell you anything, especially surgery. So this is your safe place. If you have any questions, concerns about your hair loss, just need to vent, give us a call here, 888-659-3727. I see we have some calls on the line already. I was going to start with a little bit more. I had something on my mind that I wanted to talk about, but you know what? Since we already have calls, I know I have Joe Tillman who's holding on the line via Skype. I'm going to pot him up, and we'll just say hi to him and take some calls. Hey, Joe, how are you, man?
Doing fine, thank you very much.
Good. Let me make sure I get your levels right this time, and back off your mic a little bit.
I'm backing off.
All right, there you go. That's good. So Joe, I don't know what you want to talk about tonight, but I was thinking about this today. I was thinking about my life. I was thinking about the choices that I made that were really based on the fact that I was dealing with hair loss at a young age, and all of the throughout the years I have been contacted by. And I'm not making use of hyperbole here, thousands of guys who have changed their career path because of their hair loss, who decided to basically not move forward in their lives the way that they thought they would, because either they were, hyper concerned about their hair loss, which is not uncommon, or because they made the decision, unfortunately, to have a hair transplant with a clinic or a physician who really wasn't doing state-of-the-art hair transplant surgery, and they believe their lives are ruined. There are countless stories. Guys who, I know there's one attorney that decided not to practice law, and I've told the story before, and he basically ended up purchasing a potato chip route, and he delivers potato chips for a living because he could wear a hat. Now, not that there's anything wrong with that, but he did take the time to go to undergrad, to go to law school. He passed the bar, and he felt that he could not function in that capacity because he felt he had to cover his head. So he started his own business. He had the money to buy into this business, and he makes a good living, but he's driving a truck and delivering potato chips now. Your life was completely changed by your hair loss. And I wonder, who else is out there listening to the show? And I've been reading the forum today a little bit, kind of reading some of the, actually, the forum seems to be taking a little bit of a positive spin. I should go there more often. But, I'm reading some of the negative stuff too. And I'm wondering, who else is out there that's sitting there, the young guys who are kind of paralyzed by their hair loss and think that they can't move on with their lives. What do you think about that? Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just listening.
Did I put you to sleep?
It's a subject I haven't thought about for a short while anyway. But this is something that comes up all the time. And what you're talking about with people literally changing their career paths because of their hair loss is something that's really common. I think it's a lot more common than people may realize if they're to think about it, because you have the factory worker that gets approached with a promotion for management, but it requires that he wears slacks and a tie, clipboard, and no hat.
Right.
And he passes it up because he's ashamed of his hair loss, or he's ashamed of the decision to have a bad surgery like I did at one point, to where if he takes off his hat, it's obvious that he had surgery and looks unnatural. I've seen this more times I can count. And you talk about how you've spoken to thousands of people, buddy. It's you and me both. I mean,
I know.
so many people have this issue, where it's shocking when you think about it. Especially like this guy you're talking about, the attorney turned potato chip route.
Yeah. Listen, you got to buy into it's not cheap to buy a decent potato chip route in New York.
No, of course not.
And it is, he makes a good living. He owns his own home, all that stuff. But he's an attorney.
Was it a Charles Chips route? Because those things rocked. I remember those.
Yeah, I don't want to mention the name of the route, but yeah.
Fine.
But yeah, I mean, they have chips, they have pretzels, other things as well. But yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting career path that he's chosen, and he did it solely because of his hair.
Yeah, and it's shocking, but it's not shocking. It's shocking to people that aren't in the industry and haven't heard of this type of extreme adaptation to hair loss. But you've heard it hundreds of times. I've heard it hundreds of times. It's just a natural part of the process, and it's part of this. And I'm borrowing a quote from you: "This silent epidemic of biblical proportions." That's exactly what it is to these people.
Well, when I try to explain this to like people in the media, when I'm being interviewed for, say, a magazine or whatever, and I try to explain this, usually I'm being interviewed by women. The vast majority of the people who are blogging today or who are writing for mainstream publications seem to be women. And to explain this situation to a woman who's not dealing with hair loss herself, or even if she lives with somebody or knows somebody who deals with hair loss, they're not talking about it in this, capacity. They're not as honest as the guys that are contacting us. And I try to explain to them, how the world would change. Who knows what kind of discoveries would be made or how much better the world would be, honestly, if there wasn't hair loss. And I guess it can be the opposite as well. There could be some evil, maniacal guys out there that get a leg up because they have their hair now.
Of course.
But so many different.
What are you trying to say?
I know a couple. There's so many, different aspects to this that mainstream society just doesn't want to accept or understand, or it's really difficult to explain to them. Now, I'm able to articulate it, and they usually do get it. Sadly, they'll normally keep that part, that stuff out of the articles, and they just want to hit what they think their editors want, and also what their readers are looking for. But it's a very, very real phenomenon, and Joe from Staten Island is a prime example too. I mean, he became a cop. The guy has a MBA, and he became a cop, and it's hard to believe when you hear him that, you hear him speak. But he was actually, a really well-educated guy. He decided to become a civil servant, which is, listen, cops are incredible.
Oh yeah,
I'm a big fan of the police. We need them, but he decided to become a cop so that he could wear his hat, and he chose not to take on certain, like you said, certain promotions. Yeah. Because he just wanted to basically stay in his little, you're not from New York, but they used to have these little, like, three-wheeled, like, closed-in carts. I don't know what they're called. They look.
Yeah, it's like a meter maid.
And that's what he did, and he gave out tickets.
Yeah.
And that's what he did with his life because of his hair loss.
That's a tough job.
Of course it's a tough job, but he
watched Parking Wars?
That's true. But it's because he wanted to wear his fucking hat. That's what's insane about it.
Yeah. Well, it's insane, but it's so common that I hear about this, that you hear about it. It's I don't know. It's just one of those. It's one of those great mysteries of society where it's all around us, but no one sees it.
I know. And the fact that when you try to talk about this, especially in front of women, they're like, "What? Just get a life. It's just hair loss." You know.
Oh, I've had a few conversations with women about this that have actually gotten heated, where this one woman was saying, almost verbatim, why are guys? She found out what I did for a living, right? She's like, why are guys so concerned about this?
Right.
And I happen to know that she had some work done herself.
I didn't like what, breast augmentation or facial work or
throw a rock, you name it. She'd had it done.
Yeah.
And she actually had the nerve to stand there and say, what's the big deal?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, really? Well, hypothetically, what's the big deal with a woman going through the same thing, but for other aspects of her body?
Yeah.
Say her nose, her cheekbones, breast augmentation.
How do you feel about those
tucks.
silicone orbs that you have stuffed in your body?
Well, I was addressing these issues without addressing these issues, right?
Right.
And I could tell that she realized she didn't think before she opened her big mouth.
Right.
And then the only thing that she could say in response was, okay, well, yeah, I guess it's an issue for some people. And she turned and walked away because she realized she couldn't possibly discuss this issue without addressing her own issues. Well, and she realized right off the bat that I knew what was going on herself, and she just couldn't handle the heat.
Right. And we're going to take a call in a second, but before I take a call, I want to address that issue. I was communicating with this person, very nice woman, and I don't think she meant any harm. She's in the cosmetic surgery industry. She's had some procedures done herself, just like this person. I don't know exactly what she's had done. And we were talking about an article that was something about celebrities covering up their hair loss. And she wrote this on Facebook, basically saying, it's ridiculous or something to that effect, that guys try to cover their hair loss. Balding guys are sexy. And this is a person in the industry. And then
I know who this is?
You do. And then I had to explain to her online, exactly what the situation was and why guys feel that the way that they do. And, I basically said, how would you feel? Would you be able to leave the house without a full face of makeup? And, I just put it out there, what women do every day just to fucking get the mail. It's ridiculous.
Knowing who this is, I'm absolutely floored.
Yeah.
I'm shocked.
Yeah. But just to get the fucking mail, what these girls need to do to walk out their door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And don't talk about what they do to go to the gym.
Oh, my God. And you know what's funny? Common Law just went to the gym. She does MMA stuff, too, and she just went to the gym. She's got her equipment, her gym bag, her gloves, all that stuff. Yeah. Not a stitch of makeup. Her hair is in a ponytail.
God bless her.
That's how she rolls.
That's how she rolls.
And I love her for that because, the truth is, we go out at night, whatever it is, she puts on a little makeup. I'm totally surprised. All of a sudden I'm with, it's like a new person. I mean, she looks great without makeup. There's actually a picture of her online without it. Yeah. But, it's like she doesn't need it. She doesn't feel the need. And believe me, every person's insecure about something, but she doesn't feel the need to cover herself with like a mask of makeup.
Well, because she's serious about what she's doing. And that's the thing about Common Law. She, I don't know her that well, but my impression of her from the times I have met her and just talked to her and all that is, right. She's just a confident woman to begin with, and she has every reason to be. Right. And she's learned to separate the BS in life away from what's important.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what I like about mail order. She when she goes to the gym, she doesn't bother with the makeup. She just puts her hair up and throws a hat on and goes and does her thing. So it's nice to see that. And look, there's nothing wrong with ladies getting the work done, putting on the makeup.
No, just be honest about it.
But be honest about it. Exactly.
And also don't this whole double standard thing. That's what kills me.
Yeah.
I talk about painting my head, and I don't really paint it. I put a little makeup on the back of my head. It's like, when you first mention it, they're mortified until you explain it and basically make a comparison to what these people do.
Wait till I start talking about tattooing my head.
Oh my God! All right, man. Let's take a phone call. Let's see who this is. Hey, man, you're on the air. Who's this, and where are you calling from?
Hey, it's Tim from Boston.
Tim from Boston, man.
Tim from
Long
Boston.
time. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Not bad. What's going on?
Well, I just called. Well, actually, I think it was interesting what you guys were talking about to start the show off. Because I was actually thinking of having cosmetic. Well, I guess it's cosmetic surgery, but
What are you thinking about having done?
well, I used to be a competitive soccer player in high school. My high school, or my town, I guess, is all about soccer. So when I was a kid, like very young, I played like super competitively, and I've broken my nose. Let's see, 4 or 5 times. I broke it twice in college playing, and once in high school, and then once when I was 8.
So you want to get a nose job?
Well, yeah, I mean, kind of. I want to fix the inside of my nose.
Right. Why can't you just say it? I mean, is it that you really want to get?
It wouldn't just be a rhinoplasty; it'd be a septoplasty as well.
Right. So you have a deviated septum.
I need like a lot of work done.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem admitting that that it's a rhinoplasty.
Okay.
But,
good. I'm just listen. I don't mean to bust your balls. I'm just saying, it's like there's absolutely nothing, and it's very common for guys, especially. There's absolutely nothing to be sheepish about or even ashamed about. I mean, we should be able to talk about this like women can talk about it.
Well, I'm fearful of it. Is sort of my thing.
Well, that makes sense. That actually makes sense, and you should be.
Not fearful of talking about it. Fearful of having it done.
No. Yeah, you should be.
Yeah.
This is real surgery, man. It's a big deal, and the way it's promoted, just like hair restoration, is that it's a very simple outpatient procedure. And the truth is, you really are at the mercy of the skill of this doctor.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
I was going to say this doctor works for it doesn't work for my dad. It works with my dad. This guy does eyelid surgery.
Right.
So some people need eyelid surgery done just to be able to see. So
well,
these are
I got to tell. I'm actually getting to the point where, as I'm getting older, I'm getting a flap of skin here. I'm telling you, 5 more years, it's going to be in my vision, and my insurance will pay for my eye surgery. So I'm just waiting for that.
Yeah, like my mom's cousin had it done.
Yeah.
For the insurance covered it because he couldn't drive.
Yeah.
So, but this guy, he's pretty good. So I'm going to talk to him about it. But my parents are concerned because they've seen people who've had it done, and it just doesn't. Of all the plastic surgeries on the face, it's the one that's usually most complicated. Usually because a lot of people who are having it done usually have other complications.
Right.
So, and doing a septoplasty and a rhino, he was telling me he can't do, my nose is so damaged from sports injuries that he can't do the outside without doing the inside.
Right.
And that makes it twice as complicated. So,
well, let me ask you about this guy.
I'm considering not doing it. But.
Let me ask you about his credentials first of all. I know he works for your dad, so we're not going to give out any names. Is he a board certified plastic surgeon, or is he a board certified facial plastic surgeon, or is he a cosmetic surgeon?
He's a board certified plastic surgeon.
Okay, so he's boarded by the American Board of Plastic Surgery.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
How many
in Germany?
Yeah.
And has been here for 12 years.
How many rhinoplasties does he do a year?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question. I would assume tons, but
well,
never assume.
Sure.
Never assume. I mean, if he's really concentrating, he's working with your dad and doing eyelid surgery. Is that his?
I mean, he's in there. He's in doing eyelid surgery once a week at the derm office.
Okay. Now, just to let you know, and this guy could be doing great eyelid surgery. Mm-hmm. In my view, it's usually a little bit of a red flag if he has to go to another facility to supplement his surgeries and his income. So that's something you have to really look out for. You want to go to a guy that doesn't have a long, a lot of plastic surgeons will have a laundry list of procedures they perform, and they can all perform these procedures. They learn how to do all the procedures. It doesn't mean they do them well. It doesn't mean they're consistent with them, and it doesn't mean they do them on a regular basis.
Yeah.
My advice would be, listen, there's two different types of plastic surgeons. There's board-certified plastic surgeons who are boarded by the American Board of Plastic Surgery, and then there are a lot of ENTs that get into facial plastic surgery that basically work from the neck up, and they're boarded by the American Board of Facial, Plastic, and Reconstructive Surgery. They may not be board-certified plastic surgeons, meaning they didn't learn about plastic surgery for the entire body, but they do specialize from the neck up.
Right. I did see a guy. Well, when I broke it, there was one time when I broke it so badly that this is in high school. It was so bad. My nose was literally on the other side of my face, and I had a massive concussion. And so I had to go see an ENT. Well, I saw a neurologist afterwards.
Right. Good idea.
And then I saw an ENT, and he was like, "Man, oh man, I wouldn't even feel comfortable going in there for a while until like this thing heals." Plus, I was 16 at the time, and he was like, "You're not done growing, so I can't even go in there."
Right, and that's responsible.
Yeah, at some point you're going to need to fix it. So, but then I saw this guy. I live in the Boston area, just outside, and I saw a guy. I don't know if you're really familiar, but this guy in Brookline who's supposed to be pretty good. But I don't know. Like sometimes when you go in, like I told you, I saw when I first noticed my hair loss. I went to a guy in the area, and I didn't really feel comfortable in there. So.
Right.
I had the same feeling here, so
yeah. If you feel uncomfortable, just move on. But my advice is this: if you're even considering it, really go to someone who specializes in noses. Whether it's a board-certified plastic surgeon or a facial plastic surgeon, make sure that a large majority of their practice is rhinoplasty and or like you said, what is it called? Septoplasty. Deviated septum surgery. There are a few guys. You're in Boston. There's a guy actually in New York by the name of Stephen Perlman, who is a facial plastic guy. It's not that far from you if you wanted to take a drive. I mean, or to get on the train. He's really good at what he does. Again, I'm not making any endorsements here, but he's really good at what he does, and he does a lot of noses. Also know a lot of these guys are now starting to get a little bit more involved just because of insurance and the fact that it's kind of easy money. Mm-hmm. Half their time is being spent, putting fillers in women's faces. So they're spending a little less time in the ER. You want to make sure that the person that you're working with spends a lot of time in the ER and is, booked out for rhinoplasty throughout the entire year. Because if he's not the guy you want to go to.
Right. That's a good point. So I guess, there's some people here I was considering going to New York, but especially considering I lived there. I lived in New York City for a while, so I know some people there that, could accommodate me if I were to go down there. But,
well, there's some really good plastic surgeons and facial plastic guys in New York. And I'm sure there are some plenty of good guys in the Boston area as well. I just haven't done a lot of research in that particular, area or in Massachusetts at all. Mm-hmm. But I know Steve Perlman does, he does a lot of noses, and he's really good at what he does. And there's a few other guys, but I would definitely stick with, like, if you ever watch any of these plastic surgery shows, and Joe Tillman, I'm sorry if I'm not letting you get a word in edgewise. If you want to add something, feel free.
I agree with everything you've said.
Okay, well, thank you. That's all you need to say. But, like if you look at the show, like, what is that new plastic surgery show? It's called Botched. And there's two surgeons. Oh, yeah. One is this guy, Paul Nassif, and the other guy is that guy.
Yeah. I have seen it. I did see. You know what I saw? I have to say this. I saw a guy who had a bad hair transplant.
Yeah, and that was a very interesting kind of cringe. It was a cringeworthy episode.
It was a personal trainer or something, or
exactly. And why it was cringeworthy is both of these doctors, in my view, really didn't have the expertise to treat this guy's scar. And in my view, they made a very hasty decision to, and again, I'm not a physician, so Dr. Nassif and Dr. Devereaux, is it Devereaux? Go ahead, Joe.
No, I think I know who you're talking about, yeah.
I'm not here, second guessing. Well, I guess I am second guessing you, but I'm not a physician. They went in and they kind of wanted to add expanders, and they did it in a very, very quick way to stretch this guy's skin and then do a scar revision. In my view, that was a really bad move. They didn't leave it in long enough to do the scar revision correctly, and frankly, the scar really could have been corrected using FUE. So these guys didn't have the experience to really treat this guy. Right. And if you go on the blogs, I don't think this guy was really happy with his result.
How long was the expander in?
It was a matter of weeks. Yeah, it was like maybe four weeks.
That's way too short.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they were expanding to the point where he was in such an incredible amount of pain, which isn't necessary if they do it throughout the right. It's supposed to be expanded. I think how many months for a decent scar, Joe?
Minimum of 3 months.
Yeah. I mean, I know guys who do it for like 5 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would never see a plastic surgeon for. Here's the deal. If I was getting, I know that you say it's beneficial to be in the comfort of your own where you live. When you're having hair transplant.
Right.
But just from my experience, like if I had to travel, and I would travel.
No, that's of course.
That,
absolutely.
Like that, I would be on a plane.
Even for a hair transplant. I mean, you want to go to the best of the best. I mean, it's great.
Especially a hair transplant.
Yeah, it's great if there's somebody great in your hometown. It just makes the whole scenario easier, and the whole experience easier and more comfortable. But yeah, man, I mean, you need to travel, and Joe will tell you this. I mean, Joe worked for a company where people will travel from around the world.
2 companies where that
right.
happened. Yeah, 2
That's
companies.
the one I'd consider going to, actually, if I were to have that done.
Well, here's the thing. It's up until 10 years ago, people weren't traveling for hair restoration. They were relying on their local clinics because of the local advertising, the yellow pages, billboards, stuff like that. And it wasn't until the advent of forums like Bald Truth Talk that people were starting to learn that the local option probably isn't the best option, and that
right.
In the grand scheme of things, there aren't a whole lot of doctors that are worth considering worldwide, and so that's why a lot of people have started to travel, and I think it's probably one of the more traveled for procedures in cosmetics overall.
Absolutely. There was just an article, actually, was it in, I forgot what magazine it was in, but, just talking about plastic surgery tourism, and one of the biggest procedures that people are traveling for, like you said, is hair transplants. And where are they traveling? They're traveling to Turkey. Hair transplant clinics are popping up in Turkey I've never seen anything like it before.
It's crazy. And it's funny because there's actually an article today as well. I was listening to CBC Radio, that's Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, mm-hmm. and they were talking about this exact same thing. It might have been the same article, but they were talking about Canada-wise, the percentage of people that have traveled outside of the country in 2014 versus 2013 doubled.
And I have to tell you, I think it is insane. We have received, I can't even tell you, probably 12 applicants to the IHRS. We've accepted 2 doctors who are doing really great work, 2 clinics in Turkey. And I would love to accept them all. But they keep applying. It's like almost every week there's some new application coming in from a clinic I never heard of.
Yeah.
And they just started doing the procedure. It's wild.
Well, who knows where else they're applying as well. Cast a wide net, right? So maybe they can grab something for some sort of validation.
Well, I have to tell you that I do see them, posting on different forums and other places that they're allowed to post on. And, it is what it is. There's 2 clinics that we accept in the IHRS. You can go there to check it out. I'm not here to promote them on the show. Obviously, we're not here to sell surgery. But and they're doing incredible work. So I understand if someone's willing to travel to Turkey to have a hair transplant,
there are some options.
There are some options. If they want to save some money, they're willing to take that, that trip. That's great. As far as having rhinoplasty, I think the same holds true. I mean, to take a 4-hour drive, dude, or get on a train to go to New York is not a big deal to have it done correctly.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, the thing that, I guess, I don't really care what like people think per se. You know what I mean? And I would be open about, obviously people are going to know too, because you can see where I sort of have, Owen Wilson's nose is sort of, you can tell it's been broken.
Right.
Mine isn't really quite like that, but you can tell I've broken it.
Sure.
I mean, once you break it and you don't have surgery to fix it, you can tell.
Right.
The thing's been broken. And the other thing is nobody else in my family, has it. So it's, but I guess my thing is like, I don't know. It's like, if it goes wrong, that's really bad, because then everybody not only knows about it, but it went poorly.
Well, one thing that you want to know, once you want to describe to the doctors, how you feel about the situation. Also, that you want things to be conservative. You want to be able to breathe correctly, and you just basically want it to look straight. Try not to go for a major overhaul if you're concerned about the possibility of it going wrong or him taking too much cartilage or bone away. You don't want that to happen. Would you be happy if it was just straightened out and you were able to breathe right?
Right. Yeah. That's really all I want. I mean, here's the deal. It's like, I have a strong face. If I were to take my nose down and make it small, it would look ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and that's something you have to discuss with your surgeon and just say, listen, whatever you do, when you go in there, man, it's better to have to go in again in a year because they can't put it back. Now, what they can do is, I mean, God forbid they would take too much away. They can take some cartilage from your ear or from your rib cage, but that's a whole thing you don't want to have to deal with.
Yeah.
You'd rather them go back in if you really weren't happy with the amount they took away, and shave a little bit more off. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, the other thing too is, like, I definitely feel like there is, like a stigma. I don't know if it's just because of where I live. Like, people. I don't live in an area where most people don't. If something's wrong, they kind of just accept it. I mean, Bostonians, people don't talk about plastic surgery here. That people aren't open about it.
Well, that's the way that's the way the British used to be with teeth, and you saw how that turned out for so many years.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so
a horribly good point.
Yeah. So and I listen. I understand what you're saying. You just have to not even worry about it, man. The thing is, as long as it looks good, no one's going to say a word. And the bottom line is, you want to be able to breathe better. And if you are uncomfortable with the way that it looks, and it's medically necessary as well, then hell,
Yeah, half of it's covered by insurance. So,
right. Exactly.
The thing is too is like you were saying, like, women have things done, and nobody gives, nobody really. Can I sit? I can't swear.
You can say whatever you want. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, nobody gives a shit.
Yeah.
Nobody gives a shit if a woman has a facelift. You know what I mean? Like, I know tons of women here my mother's had one.
Sure, of course.
Nobody talks about it. What's so funny too is, like, you said. I mean, I know this is a bald show, but people say, why do you care about your baldness? But then they're kind of silently judging you, I feel like. Like, today I was eating at a bagel place. It's St. Patrick's Day. They were making green bagels. I went in for one, and this guy's got a full head of hair. He's probably, like, I don't know, in his 50s.
Yeah.
And I keep my hair really short. Kind of looks at me. It was like staring at me, So it's not just, women's perception. I feel like it's everybody's perception.
Sure.
Like, I think I thought he looked at me like I was going to, like hurt him or something. I don't know. Yeah, it was a bizarre look,
Yeah.
And I get it all the time. It's like, no, this is a choice I've made because I'm young and, I don't want to, have a thinning hairline. That's quite obvious, So it's like, but you can't say that, and then, so they're just judging you, But then if you go and do something about it, it's like, then you're getting judged about that too. Like, you care so much or something, or you care too much, or
the moment you start really concerning yourself with how people think about it is the moment where you're making it an issue, right?
Right.
I mean, I understand what you're talking about, and it makes perfect sense. I mean, it's a similar issue with hair, getting restored, and if it's done wrong, I mean, you need to. it's understandable, but just try not to focus on all these little peripheral issues that develop because of it. Because if you do, you'll drive yourself nuts.
And that's what I always say. I mean, we as men, it's difficult enough for us to have to deal with the issue of not being able to speak about hair loss in the society. We're looked at as being vain or, just being, hyper concerned about something that society doesn't deem important. And then going out and having cosmetic surgery to fix a problem that's not important. And then you get fucked up by somebody. I mean, I completely understand it. But the thing is, it's kind of like, I advise people the way that, I kind of live my life. Coming out and talking and being the hair loss guy at the age of 30, it wasn't the easiest thing in the world to do. To go on the air and talk about my concerns about hair loss, and then people at the time, obviously it wasn't video, but I did some television. People would find images of me. People would be, it was just like, it was like I was this weird hair guy. I was the guy talking about hair loss. And then, even during interviews, it was almost like tongue-in-cheek initially, the way these reporters would interview me.
Well, I guess the thing, here's the deal, is like, I feel like you're judged for how you look, People judge you for how you look, but then for a man, it's sort of like, I don't know, you're supposed to be okay with the way you look. I don't know.
I'll tell you what, here's my take on this, okay? And Spencer said something that was interesting. It's, society tells us that we shouldn't be concerned about it, but actually they do. It's a double-edged sword where we're told not to be concerned about it, but when we're not concerned about it, they're giving us a hard time about it.
Right, but there's a lot of there's plastic surgery shaming across the board, even for women. I mean, if you look at and see, one of the biggest items in these tabloids and like TMZ is outing people for their plastic surgery. And if you read the comments, especially by women, about other people's or celebrity plastic surgery, it is vicious. And people are saying, like, why would you do that to yourself? Well, you know what? These poor women, these celebrities, are being criticized, critiqued by the way they look, by everybody. And then if they feel the pressure to tweak themselves to maintain their youth and their appearance, then they're criticized for doing that as well. So, that's just the way that it is. I don't think it's just something that is, a male issue. I definitely think it's across the board when it comes to plastic or any type of cosmetic surgery. It is more difficult for men, but I would say that women are a lot more vicious towards women than men are towards men.
Well, you know what I've come across too is like if I'll meet some, I'm 26, but if I meet somebody who I've noticed that like reactions of women are different. Like I recently, had an interaction with somebody who's like 4 years younger than I am. And her reaction is different than somebody I'll meet who's, say, like a year older than me.
Oh, sure.
So weird. And you can see it like in their eyes, like when they're interacting with you, that they're kind of judging you.
Look, let me tell you, dude, in a few years, I'm going to have so many stitches in my face, it's not going to be funny. I'm starting to see things fall, and I'm just like, fuck it. I mean, if I want to do something, I'm going to do it. I'm going to talk about it. I may even do it on camera so that the world can see it. That's how, my only concern is ending up like Wayne Newton. That's, no offense, Wayne. That would be my concern about getting anything done. And I don't want to be, like, I'm not the type of guy to, like, I'm not going to dye my beard or dye my hair, which looks much more salt and pepper in person than it does on camera. I just kind of think that's over the top, and I think it's unnecessary for a guy. But, doing your eyes or whatever it is, at some point, I know that I'm probably going to be uncomfortable enough to make that happen. And I have to be open about it.
My dad doesn't agree with me fixing my nose. He says, like, whatever, it looks okay. Like, when people look at you, they know that, like, what's happened. It's not, like, a huge deal. If anything, it makes you look masculine, and...
Well, it can. And it depends on how it looks. I mean, some guys, it looks real. Having a broken nose looks pretty cool.
Right. But, I mean, but here's the deal, right? This is a guy, my dad's 70, and he has a full head of hair, of course, but he dyes it.
Right.
I mean, he dyes his hair, and like he had another kid, he remarried when I was 12 and had another kid who's like half my age.
Sure.
And so he, like,
he's trying to retain his youth,
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like, he tells me not to worry about my hair and not to do this, and he thinks that I'm compensating for my hair loss by having my nose fixed, but I don't know, it's like, I don't know, it's like, that's the thing, it's like, how can people tell you or like judge you or tell you not to do something, but then they're, secretly concerned and doing things,
Well, that's the great hypocrisy of life, man. I mean, of everything.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, you got to do what you have to do. And the only advice that I have for you is to do your due diligence, to make sure you know who you're getting involved with if you decide to have surgery, to make sure you're able to meet patients, make sure that this is a procedure that this doctor has a tremendous amount of experience with. Ask him, how many rhinoplasties and deviated septum surgeries have you performed this month? Not just in your career.
Not just that, but also, in not so many terms, ask him how many he screwed up. Just to put him on notice that, oh, okay, well, that's an actual legitimate question that I need to own up to.
Yeah, like what's the percentage of, mix-ups?
Yeah. How many people what percentage of people come back who might not be thrilled?
Satisfied.
Yeah.
And he may not, it doesn't mean he's going to be honest about it, but it changes the dynamics of a discussion if you start asking tough questions like that.
I mean, if you asked a premier hair transplant surgeon, how often do you have patients that are dissatisfied with their outcome or their scar or whatever? Are they forthcoming, do you think? Or
absolutely not.
I would say I agree I agree 100% with that. There's no way they once you ask them that question, they'll kind of be put on their heels a little bit, and they'll start the discussion will be open. They'll say, well, you know what? It is possible to have complications. We have had complications, but they're rare. That's what they're going to say.
That's exactly what they'll say. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's look, every cosmetic surgeon out there, whether it be for hair, rhinoplasty,
they fuck somebody up.
You name it, they fuck someone up.
Yeah.
And as far as the hair restoration goes, Spencer knows this. I know this. The industry knows this. There are more people that are getting less than satisfactory results, and I say that loosely because it does run the whole gamut to absolute disasters, to people that are not 100%, maybe 90%, but it still qualifies. So when you ask this question of your rhinoplasty surgeon, or if you ask this question of your hair transplant surgeon, when they say it's rare, they're being very conservative because the way you're asking has to cover the whole gamut. Don't let them say, oh, it's rare to have disasters, or it's rare to have really bad outcomes, or rare to have no growth or bad growth. That's not what you're asking. You're asking about satisfaction rates. Have you had, how many unsatisfied patients have you had in the past year, or the past month, or the past 5 years?
You think it's okay to just outright ask it like that, or?
It's okay to ask anything you want because you're hiring the doctor to do a job for you, not the other way around.
And you're also going to be able to judge him by his reaction to your questions. Exactly. If he is someone, if he becomes defensive, then he's not a guy you want to perform surgery, to perform your surgery, because God forbid if there is a complication, then he's going to be extremely defensive. He may just pawn you off onto somebody in the office, and eventually, sick his attorney on you. And that's the way some of these guys operate. So you want somebody who, he's not going to be completely honest, because he's not going to say, yeah, you know what, we had 2 guys who I fucked up this month. It's not going to happen. But at the very least, you're going to be able to tell how he reacts to your question. And if he reacts poorly, then he's not somebody you want to go to, or she.
I agree 100%.
All right, man?
All right.
Listen, I always appreciate the call. I wish you the best of luck. Do not jump into any surgery. I know you're not going to. You're a smart guy. But do your due diligence. Make sure, if you're going to have this done, that the guy or the woman that you choose does a lot of noses. That should really be their main focus.
All right.
And the way you should ask him to say, hey, I don't want to be nosy.
Oh, man.
But I'm sorry.
That's corny Joe Tillman.
Thank you. But
All right, dude. All right, man.
All right.
Thanks for the call.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, take care.
Take care, Tim.
888-659-3727. He's always a great caller. And, those are, listen, they're important questions. And it's interesting when he told me that, okay, this guy comes into his dad's practice and performs blethioplasty. I think that's how you pronounce it. Like once a week. A really busy surgeon, someone who has a tremendous reputation, for the most part, isn't going to go to somebody else's practice to do that.
No, they've got their own office they work out of.
That's exactly right. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this, and where are you calling from?
How are you, gentlemen?
Oh my God, Joe, what's happening, man?
Is this the nose truth or the bull?
It's both.
What's up, Joe?
I thought I tuned into the wrong program.
Oh, sorry to hear that. Is everything okay with you? You feeling all right?
I'm not feeling that well, though. But I figured I had to call in that you've been off a couple of weeks. The difficulty with your phones the prior week.
Right. Well, how are you?
I'm all right, man. But it's some very disappointing news on allergen. The rumors are they're not releasing the results till next year. I don't know if that's true or false. I called the company. They have no comment on that.
Well, they're not going to comment on that, especially if you just, some guy calling their main offices. And I did hear the same thing, but you never know, and you don't even know what the reasoning is, and frankly, you're probably not going to find out about it on the message forum either. So we'll see.
What is your reaction to this newest stuff, Filosept and Septic by Criteria, one of the largest pharmaceutical companies going?
Yeah, well, my reaction is this. I'll believe it when I see it. Also, when companies, in my view, kind of pander to message forums, I would always have my hackles up.
What does that mean?
That means I would be very, just cautiously optimistic, possibly, or just kind of realize that that's not the way things usually work.
Everything with a grain of salt.
Yeah, take everything with a grain of salt. It's an interesting conversation to view and to read. I read about some of it today on Ball Truth Talk, but I would not get overly excited about it, obviously. And it's at this point, if I were a betting man, I would probably say that I wouldn't hold my breath.
Yep, every year, it seems we have new things, but nothing ever just pans out.
No, you sound very depressed tonight, Joe, and you're depressing the hell out of me right now.
I am very, very depressed tonight. I don't know why, but
I'm sorry to hear that. Have you been in touch with Dr. Bauman? Did you get your laser cap? Can you talk about that for a second? We've got some more calls, which we're going to take in a minute anyway. But if you can...
Yes, I've been using the laser cap, quite aggressively, 30 minutes every other day, along with his Formula 82M. And I've been using it for a month. Is it a placebo effect, or is my hair getting better? This is what I don't understand. Is it possible it's getting better, or is it a placebo effect?
Well, it depends. Even a placebo effect at this point when it comes to hair probably wouldn't be something that's that noticeable. If it was your mind and you were able to create a fuller, denser head of hair based on, believing that you have one, I don't know how much you would even see with a placebo effect after a month. But, if you see a difference, I guess it's possible that it's real.
Hey, Joe, how's the, you talk about an issue with the hair that's been transplanted not growing in length for the past number of years. How has that been affected by this? Is it growing longer? Is it getting thicker? Is there an overall improvement to that hair?
That hair seems to be growing longer.
Really?
Well, that's definitely possible after a month.
Why is that?
Because the hair is already cycling. It's already growing. It's not like you're, all of a sudden, growing, trying to grow hair from complete, miniaturized vellus hair.
Well, Joe's told me for years that it never gets any longer. It just grows to a certain length and stops.
Right. So the fact that it is possible. You could definitely. I mean, you can grow an eighth of an inch to a quarter of an inch of hair growth every month. So if the hair is already cycling, and you somehow kicked it into an anagen phase, or just helped it, grow longer, I guess it's possible. I mean, but you don't know. You're using the topical minoxidil preparation and the laser caps. You don't know what's making it happen.
And that's always the confusion with those with the laser devices is no one can pinpoint which of the peripheral items, support items being used are also helping, or if there is any sort of benefit from the laser itself, and if it's just the support items.
Yeah, and personally, if it were me, I probably, if you were going to experiment with a laser cap, I would have just used the laser cap. But now it's, you've already started the process. You already started to put the stuff on your head, so I wouldn't stop doing it, especially if you're starting to see results.
Absolutely. Don't change anything.
Yeah.
Dr. Baumer did say I should use them both.
Well, I mean, that's how he treats his patients. And I would say that most doctors will use a combination therapy to treat their patients. Yeah. Every doctor that I've ever spoken to says, especially when they're treating you using medication, to use a combination of finasteride and minoxidil. I was just never a believer of that. I always just, common sense dictates that you're not going to know what's working for you.
Unless you use one separate from the other.
That's right.
Well, I am feeling, I don't know. I look in the mirror and it seems like it's getting better.
Well, then why are you depressed? That's great news, man. Come on.
That's all that matters.
Fucking snap out of it, dude.
I don't know, because maybe I'm afraid it's placebo effect. I'm more depressed about allergen that, why aren't they making an announcement?
We can't worry about that. But even if it is a placebo effect, it's still happening. It doesn't mean that placebo effect it doesn't mean that you're imagining it. It means that somehow your body has manifested these changes based on your beliefs, based on your brain, and that can happen.
The reasoning's irrelevant. It's the activity that matters.
That's right.
I don't understand what you gentlemen mean. Do you mean that it's really happening, or it's in my mind?
No. If it's a placebo effect, means it's really happening, but it's not happening because of the agent or the laser or the drug that you're using. It's happening, but it's actually physically happening. There is a physical phenomenon happening. Now with you, it's possible that it is in your mind. I don't know, but if you're actually seeing it, and if someone else, maybe you can speak to your wife or your kids, if they're seeing a change, it doesn't matter what the reason is. If it's a placebo effect or if it's actually the laser cap that's doing it, the fact that it's happening is a positive thing.
You've heard the term mind over matter. That's exactly what this is.
Thank you. I don't know why I couldn't think of that, but yes.
That's okay.
That's exactly it. All right, Joe, listen.
Please elaborate, Joe.
Well, it's one of those situations where if you believe something enough, strong enough, then the power of the mind, I sound like Tony Robbins.
Right.
The power of the mind can actually influence physical change within your body, be it through healing, be it through being able to do things that you normally wouldn't be able to do. If you believe it enough, if you think about it hard enough, and try to visualize these things happening, then theoretically your mind develops these pathways, your brain develops these pathways that actually manifest these visualizations into reality. So your mind, your body is creating the environment for the hair to start growing.
Very well said, and that's exactly what mind over matter is. So Joe, no matter what's happening, if you actually see it, if you actually are seeing a change, that's good. It's positive. So don't worry about it.
I'm very happy about it. I'm just generally, depressed mood. That's about it.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm glad you called in. I'm glad that your hair is doing better. And just hang in there, all right?
But just tell me one more quick thing, Spencer. What do you give me 30 seconds more, please? What do you make out of allergen? Why is it? Aren't they talking? Is it good or is it bad?
Well, let's put it this way. If it was something that they think that they could market, that they thought that they could market immediately, then they would put the information out there ASAP, because they're in the business of making money. That's what, I mean, they're obviously a drug company, but they're doing this. I mean, in one sense, it's for the greater good. It's for the greater good of mankind, but it's, they're trying to make some money here. So why wouldn't they want to get positive news out there as soon as possible?
That's their number one priority. That is why they exist.
That's right. So if they are not getting that information out to the public, there's a reason for it. I don't know what that reason is.
But if it wasn't successful, they would have canceled the project, right?
Not necessarily. There's a lot of politics involved, and there's a lot of business decisions involved when it comes to these companies. And there are drugs out there that have been proven to be effective that just never make it to market.
Just like with Avodart. The rumor is, I don't know the truth to this, but it was actually being tested for male pattern hair loss for the market, and then internally they decided that there was not enough evidence that they would be able to reap the return on investment because the public would not see it as distinctively different from Propecia.
That's exactly right. And also they were looking at the numbers for Propecia, and also the vast decline of what was going down and what was happening online.
Yeah.
And they just felt, you know what? Look, we know this works for hair loss, and it works extremely well for hair loss, but we're not going to make our money back. We're not going to, it's just, to put it on the market, it's going to be a waste of our time.
Exactly. So maybe it's something like that. They just didn't see a market for the product long term.
All right, Joe, listen, man, thanks for the call. Feel better. We're going to try to liven up the show, see who else is on the line, all right?
Okay, thank you.
All right, you feel better, man. Take care.
Take care, Joe.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Joe.
You got it. Hey, man, you're on the air. Who's this, and where are you calling from?
How's it going, guys? This is Brian from Los Angeles.
Brian from Los Angeles.
Brian,
how are you?
My boy.
How are you guys?
Not bad. Can't complain.
Good. No, how you doing, Joe Tillman?
I'm good, sir. How about yourself?
Great. Couldn't, never been better. I called a couple months ago to kind of rant and rave about how happy I was with my temporary scalp micropigmentation from Hassett and Wong. And, I'm calling again to do a little bit of the same thing. That last caller, Joe from Staten Island, I was curious, has he ever tried it or consider it? And do you think it would look good on him?
You know what? He's had some really, some pluggy work done in the past. He's definitely dealing with some scar issues. I mean, it might. I don't know if he's the type of guy who would feel comfortable with the shaved head look.
I would agree with that. Yeah, it wouldn't work for him as far as what he's looking for as a result, what his expectations are. Not to mention, I'm not a big believer in this for the scar tissue aspect. It can work, but there is an inconsistency with it to where it's just unpredictable. And I think you and I discussed this offline at one point, Brian.
Actually, no, I didn't know about that. What's the deal with scar tissue and SMP?
Well, it works for some. It doesn't work for others. It's just scar tissue is so different physically than actual skin tissue. It's more porous. It's more it's the lattice work of the construction of scar tissue as opposed to skin tissue is just more questionable.
You're talking about him getting SMP into a scar tissue.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
So he has a lot of scar tissue on his head, then I take it.
Well, he had 4mm plugs done back in the late 70s, and then he has I think he has at least one strip scar. I may be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure that he does. So there's a lot of scarring there, and he's just, the guy wants to have he walks around with a hat all day. He definitely does. He's not the type of guy to shave his head. And even if it were to work well to camouflage his scar tissue, he wouldn't do it.
Okay. Now, you know what? It's like, I know this isn't a procedure that you've got your guys who you support for hair transplantations, but, for me, this procedure was life-changing for me to live my life like the way I've always wanted to live it. So, I'm completely happy with it. And just, if anybody's listening out there, there's got to be, 1% of you.
You're breaking up, dude. You got to speak directly into your phone.
Oh, sorry, man. I'm just hoping there's one listener out there who would just, give this a thought. If it could change your life the way
you're a guy, if I remember correctly, you're a guy who had a couple of hair transplants.
I had a couple, but the thing with me is, if you ask me, well, how much more hair do you want? The answer is always more. And then with SMP, it's just like you can really get as much as you want, obviously to a certain point, because you don't want to, look like ink's bleeding on your heads. But it just gave me a peace of mind. It's like, I know this ink is going to fade in whatever, 12 to 18 months, but I know I can go back and do it again. It's not like I'm wondering, okay, crap, where am I going to harvest, additional grafts from? These aren't grafts.
Well, and that's what I think. You just said something very important, and I think that's something that anyone who's considering SMP has to understand. You had something done that is not permanent, something that will eventually fade, and something that, while, there are people out there who say, well, why would I get this done if it's going to fade? You want to have that option. I have seen, especially here in Los Angeles, some of the worst SMP walking around. There was a guy who got out of he was actually driving a Corvette, believe it or not, got out of his car, and it looked like his head was basically stenciled.
Jesus.
It was
right.
Absolutely ludicrous. And there's absolutely, you can see it from a mile away because I know what I'm looking for, 100% permanent SMP. Now, what will happen eventually, probably because he went to a really shitty provider, is they probably didn't even use great ink, and that will turn blue. That's it, and that's permanent.
Yeah.
What you had done, if someone doesn't like it, in time, like you said, in 18 months, it's going to fade probably to the point where it's almost going to be, it could take longer, actually, but it depends on the person. But it's going to fade enough where it's not going to be something that's going to alter their lives forever.
And, here's the thing about Brian in his case, if I may, Brian.
Please go ahead.
When he was going through surgeries, he was a repair case, and he had surgery in Los Angeles twice, if I'm not mistaken, and just once, okay. And he had a few, I think it was maybe 2 surgeries for repair, and I've had many discussions with Brian on the phone about the possibility of getting more surgery. And these conversations will be started when he would call me up saying exactly what he just said. I want more hair, and I would have to talk him down because of the donor limitation, because of the the donor strip making too much tension, because we don't want him to have bad scarring. And it was one of those cases where he was a big topic wearer, a big concealer user, and when he found out about SMP, trichopigmentation or scalp micropigmentation, he was first in line to be a test case. And he's one of those cases where you look at a patient surgically and they're not 100% happy because it's just not enough, and to do more would be detrimental.
Sure.
As opposed, but the way that he turned around with his attitude, with his outlook on life, was such a joy for me to watch. Because, and this is one of the things about being in this industry that I enjoy, is seeing people not only move on with their lives, but do it in a complete 180-degree fashion from the way they were before, to where, Brian has so much freedom now that quite frankly, I'm surprised about, and I love seeing it. I love seeing it. I'm so happy.
Here's the thing, I mean, you probably had enough graphs where, now that you kind of supplemented it or augmented it with with temporary SMP, it probably has more of obviously more of a three-dimensional look than if you were just to do a full scalp of SMP.
That's true. But here's the thing. I could have sworn, 5 years ago, if you told me I would be shaving my head in both directions with a razor just because I liked the way it looked, I would have called anybody, you're crazy, you're out of your mind, that's never going to happen.
Right.
But with the SMP, it gives a look that I really like. And I received the highest compliment in the world. I was at a party outside by the beach hanging out on Saturday, and some guy just looked at me and kind of in front of everybody, he goes, dude, why do you shave your head? You have a full head of hair.
Yeah, that
now,
is
Joe
awesome.
Tillman will tell you I don't have anything near a full head of hair.
Nice.
I'll tell you what, though, right now, it looks like I do, and I believe that, and that's the most important thing. And S&P was able to help accomplish that. And to me, there's a world of difference between a guy with a shaved head, even if it's both directions, versus a guy who's actually bald. Guy who's actually bald, you can't tell where his forehead ends and the top of his head begins.
Right.
But with me, there's super clear definition. It completely shapes my face.
Well, and I think,
and it's just something that works.
but this is the thing, and this is what I don't want our listeners to get confused about. When you say SMP, I mean, that is a very broad term that's being used by so many different companies right now. You had temporary SMP, and it would be great.
100%.
I actually think that it would be smart, and maybe Joe, you can do this, and I'll give this, here's a free idea, to kind of maybe change the vernacular, change the term for, temporary stuff compared to the permanent stuff, because there is confusion. Someone who can tune into this broadcast, whether it's through, iHeartRadio when it's on repeat, or through our sites, or wherever they're going to be viewing it, they can listen to it for maybe 12 minutes or something and not realize that you're talking about temporary SMP, and then they'll look up SMP online, and they'll find one of these big clinics that are doing permanent SMP, and they can end up having their lives destroyed.
Exactly. And actually the terminology for what Brian had is trichopigmentation, which is a term that was coined and trademarked, actually, trichopigmentazione, by Beauty Medical in Milan, who came up with this temporary version.
And I really think we should start referring to the temporary stuff as trichopigmentation. And obviously, Brian, it's not your fault. I mean, everyone's calling it SMP now. But it's kind of like FUE, whatever. But I really think there needs to be that distinction, because people who watch or listen to this broadcast could get confused, and you see this online all the time. There is a distinct difference that needs to be made. And the fact that someone could walk away from this, even if they go to a practitioner who sucks at what they do, as long as they're using the temporary inks, they don't have to live with that for the rest of their lives. And that's, I think that's pretty, that's of vital importance when you're explaining this procedure to somebody. So
yeah, I agree 100%.
Yeah, no, well
said.
said.
Like you were saying earlier. Go ahead. I saw a guy too, at a car dealership once who he got the permanent stuff, and it looked really bad, just like somebody spilled a pen on his head. And you felt really sorry for the guy.
Dude, there's this van that hangs outside this bagel shop that I go to that has this big. It's what do they call it when it's and there's it's just a big advertisement. It's wrapped. It's a wrapped van.
Oh yeah, mm-hmm.
And it's an SMP van, and it just sits there. And there's basically this hair salon that does SMP in the back, permanent SMP. They have a tattoo artist. Wow. I mean, Jesus. I was actually talking about cars. I was actually getting my car washed, and in gas stations they have these kiosks where you can get people's business cards.
Yeah.
And there was a business card from a guy, basically saying, it was like game-changing hair restoration. It's a local Neograft guy saying, the work can be performed on any man or woman, any age, and he can go back to work the next day. That's the type of stuff that you see all the time. So I really think it's important to get back to making a distinction. There has to be a distinction. I really don't think there should be, we should talk much about SMP, and there should be one term. I actually I'm going to consider having our moderators make that distinction in the message form as well. That might be helpful.
Probably not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, agreed. And, there's also one other thing I will throw out there. For a while, the first time after I had the temporary scalp micropigmentation done, I grew out my hair a little bit. And I could say that Dr. Hassan was my hair transplant surgeon that I was always 100% satisfied with. It did help me, from a confidence standpoint and from a physical standpoint, how it looked, with SMP in between my hair transplant.
Oh, sure.
I always used to put Topic on the top of my head. In the area that he transplanted, after the SMP, I no longer put Topic on that part of my head. I put it on a different part of my head, because, like in my crown and in the back, because that was pretty thin. But to get you off a Topic, Topic was always just one of those things. I hated applying it, and it's like you feel naked without it. You're nervous about it when you travel. Is it going to come off in certain situations, et cetera, et cetera. So to have a procedure that's really just part of you that really isn't going anywhere, unless given enough time, it was a really significant, addition. And I feel that, even for guys who don't want the shaved head look that I've become so happy with, it could really just help give a more of a fuller look to your hair transplants without actually going in and having a hair transplant procedure.
Listen, Brian, I think that's great advice. I'm so happy that you're happy. I mean, obviously your life has been changed dramatically, and that's what counts. And look, I don't think trichopigmentation is for everybody, but I do think that it can be a tremendous procedure for the right candidate, and you were obviously the right candidate. So, I love to hear these stories. I'm glad you called.
Thrilled. No, thank you. And I hope just, even a couple listeners would just take that into consideration. It changed my life. If it could do that for somebody else, that's great too. But, just I always want to call in. I feel that the effectiveness of this procedure is maybe a little understated. Like it was pretty cool when it came out and then just kind of tapered off. But, to be able to help a guy like myself as much as it did, I want to get the word out there that, you go out there, get the good stuff, the temporary stuff like we were just talking about.
Right.
It could be dramatic.
And I think it's beyond, the temporary stuff is the real big step. That's really important. But you also have to make sure you're going to a skilled practitioner, because there are a lot of clinics out there, hair transplant clinics included, who are just kind of like hiring people who, they may be trained to some degree, in the process, or they may have someone trained by Milena's team, and then they'll bring somebody else in. And then this other person who's trained will train this other person who may just be a tattoo artist, and then you just don't know what the fuck you're getting. So exactly. You really have to know who you're dealing with. You have to see their patients or their clients. Make sure that they are their real clients, not just a before and after book or, stuff they pull up online. See if you can meet people in person and say, hey, listen, I want to just make sure that this person performed the procedure on you. And that's really, in my view, the safest way to go about it. But listen,
I agree 100%.
Brian, listen, I really appreciate the call.
Always. And thank you guys. Thank you both for what you've done. And it's been significantly, helpful for me and just, moving on with life. So thank you both.
All right. You're welcome, man.
Congratulations,
Thanks for the call.
Brian. Thanks for calling.
All right. Take care.
Thank you, guys.
888-659-3727. Joe Tillman, we are going to take a quick break. So go to the bathroom, get a drink.
Thank God.
do whatever you have to do. We are going to take your calls when we come back. We have about what time is it? We have about, we've got about 40 minutes left in the broadcast. 888-659-3727. I'm Spencer Kobren. You are listening to and watching The Bald Truth. Stay with us.
The winner of 7 prestigious Golden Forehead Awards.
My family's always arguing. It always starts off innocent and then it gets vicious right away. So I was like, hey, looks like you're losing some hair. At least my wife's not a whore.
Spencer David Kobren.
The brothers gonna work it out. The brothers
Hey guys, welcome back. 888-659-3727. Just realized I played this tune at the opening of the show. What are you going to do? Got so many buttons here. I think my memory's failing me anyway. Welcome to the broadcast. 888-659-3727. You're listening to The Bald Truth. And listen, I want to thank you guys. You hear a lot of bullshit out there from podcasters and internet broadcasters, and everyone says that they're number one, or they have the most live listeners, or the most callers, or all kinds of bullshit. People say they have, different types of matrix and ways to verify their numbers. All I can tell you is you guys have made The Bald Truth. I'm not going to say number one because I don't want to be obnoxious. But you guys have made The Bald Truth one of the most listened to and watched live internet broadcasts in history. And what you guys have been able to do has changed a lot of lives. Thousands, if not millions of lives. Now, obviously, look, I do the show. I produce the show. This is my broadcast. But if it wasn't for you guys tuning in, showing us those live numbers, showing interest in what we do, being a part of what we do, calling into this broadcast, it would not be what it is today. So I want to thank all of my listeners, all of our readers, all of our followers, the guys that have been listening to the show. I mean, the old school guys from 1998 who were listening when we were on WABC radio in New York and followed us across the country, nationally and internationally, and on XM radio and now on the internet. Thank you so much. And the reason I'm saying this is, besides thanking you guys, is I hear such bullshit on some of these internet shows, and I'm like, God almighty. Not everyone is number one. Not everyone is a pioneer. You know who's a pioneer in internet broadcasting? I think I see him on the line. Andrew Zarian is a pioneer in internet broadcasting. And I will have to tell you that, we've been actually streaming this show live on the air since 1998. There was a time when I had to stop streaming it live because the powers that be in radio, initially they allowed me to stream my show live because they were like, who's listening on the internet? What's the big deal? Then when internet broadcasting became something that they thought they could make money from, I was no longer allowed, or it was suggested that I stop streaming my show live on my website. And then we were just kind of putting up clips. We did that for many years. But you just hear a lot of bullshit in this industry. And, there are very few real pioneers and very few people who are really making a living wage doing what they do on the internet. And this is one guy that actually is. I think this is him on hold. And first of all, let me pot up Joe Tillman. Joe, you still there?
Yeah, still here.
Okay, cool. Andrew, is that you?
Hey, it's me.
What's happening, man?
Andrew, what's up, man?
Hey, Joe, what's going on?
Not much, buddy.
See that? I just put you over again.
You did put me over, and that's what Jess said. We're in bed right now, and she goes, "Oh, Spencer's putting you over."
I'm just
I listened to the show, and I want to call in because it's my favorite podcast to listen to at this point.
I appreciate it. Please don't call it podcast.
I'm sorry, internet broadcast.
Thank you. Listen, I'm not gonna. I don't want to give out a spoiler here, but next week I want to show a video. We'll post it on Bald Truth Talk. It was when you did your densitometer reading live on the air with Dr. Glenn Charles, and I forgot what your hair looked like just a year and a half ago compared to what it looks like now.
You know what, Spencer? You sent that to me last night, and I think it was late here. I think it was like midnight there, and I got it this morning. And you go, holy crap, look at this video. And I looked at it, and I remember doing the densitometer test on the air with Dr. Glenn Charles, and I don't remember my hair being that bad.
Right.
Like, in my mind, it wasn't awful. It wasn't bad.
No.
It was, like, I felt like something was happening, but I didn't think it was that bad.
Well, it wasn't. The thing is, it wasn't that bad. But when you compare it to what it is now that you're on finasteride, it's like, all right, maybe he was right, because I wasn't
Holy
quite.
crap.
I wasn't quite sure you were losing it.
No. Like, and for a while, like, you know, you're Spencer Kobren, like, you're the guy, and you know, you would be honest with, especially me. You would tell me, like, listen, dude, like, I'm a little conservative on the air, but you should go on this.
Yeah.
You would be the first to tell me that. I feel like in my personal life.
Right.
You would tell me every day, like, listen, it's not bad. I don't think you need it yet, but if you want to go on it, you should go on it.
Right.
And I honestly didn't feel like, okay, listen, this is something that I have to go on. I asked Jessica, my wife, 1,000 times, should I go on this? She goes, I don't think you're losing your hair. Your hair looks great. Your hair looks great. Everybody around me would tell me my hair looks great. And I looked at this video, and I was mortified, as in the words of Joe from Staten Island.
Well, you should, first of all, you shouldn't have been mortified, but there is a significant change. But I want to make this clear.
Because I looked at the comparison. I looked at the before and after. I'm looking at it right now. I'm looking at my text message to you from today.
Right.
And there is a significant difference from the time I did this densitometer test. I can't even remember the date. I think it was late 2012.
It was June.
Early 2013.
It was June 2012.
Okay. So almost, 20 months ago.
Right.
I'm looking at the comparison from that to this week, and it is a totally different hairline.
Well, I will say this. I want to make this clear. I actually said you probably shouldn't take it and you should wait. And that I said, listen, dude, you got to realize that you never know what the side effects are going to be. Right now, you seem to be holding your own. You have a mature hairline. I don't know how bad it's going to get, judging from your family history and all that stuff. You have to be the judge. You have to make that decision. And then he told me that you went to the doctor and you got yourself a prescription. And I was like, well, look, just be careful. Know what you're getting into. But I have to say, it's working. It really is.
Holy crap. And I'll tell you, like, it is receding in that first shot. And so I snapped that picture and I sent you, like, a before and after.
Yeah.
And I even overexposed it because the lighting is a little dark in the studio, so it may, gimmick the photo up where it kind of looks fuller than it is. So I overexposed it, and it's a totally different hairline.
Well, what does Jess say? Now that did you show her that video?
You know what? So she has not been a fan of me being on finasteride.
Which is understandable.
Which is totally understandable.
Right.
If you go online and you read anything about it, the first thing anybody ever says to me about finasteride is, yeah, but I heard that there are a lot of side effects.
Right.
So that's immediately the first thing that people hear. And she was against this. I've been on this thing since December.
Right.
I think December 2nd was the first day that I took it. So December, January, February.
I've actually never seen such fast results.
I was just going to say. I was just about to ask. Didn't you just start this like in the past few months, and now you're to the point where you're saying, "Wow, look at the difference compared to back in the day."
Let me tell you something, dude. I mean, I noticed that at least with me, it took about 3 months before I saw the miniaturization starting to reverse, and I was a very early responder. I have to say that while you can only grow about up to a quarter of an inch of hair a month, there's no doubt that miniaturization, just like he hit it on an antigen phase. He lucked out.
Yeah.
And it's just
Joe,
like...
Are you on...
Go ahead.
Are you right now on Facebook? Because I don't want to ruin it for the show, but I'll send you the the before and afters.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah, fire it off.
So just to get, your reaction to this.
I'm on right now.
Well, this is what I will say. Common law, actually, because you constantly ask her if you're losing your hair, and she didn't think you were losing your hair, but she did think that you had a little bit of a mature hairline, but you're fucking 30 years old. You're going to be 31. But she did say
31 years old,
she did say something to me when she saw you in Vegas, and I don't know if she mentioned it to you. Maybe she did. I was already drunk.
No, what did she say?
Just like his hair looks incredible.
Yeah, I mean that was the first thing you guys both you guys. Joe, I sent you. The
oh my God!
Holy! Am I wrong? What? I mean, isn't that unbelievable?
I'm talking about how much weight he lost. No, I'm just kidding. No,
I did lose a lot of weight too.
That too.
You did lose a lot of weight, but dude, your hair looks completely different.
Like,
this is insane.
Like I had to ask him. I said, was that? Did you do that show when your hair was wet? And he's like, no, it's the same. He's wearing the same stuff that he always wears in his hair.
This is impressive. I've seen a lot of heads on Propecia, and this is probably in the top 5 responses I've seen.
Yeah, he's like a responder like me. I noticed, and that's why I fucking wrote the bald truth. I thought it was like a miracle.
See, it's not just the early turnaround. It's the turnaround at all in the hairline.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what's impressive. It's a double whammy.
Yeah, it's pretty unusual.
I mean, it's thickened. It's thickened a lot on the front, and that's the first thing that I noticed was that the hair that I had currently was thickening. And in the last month, month in, I started noticing that hair was coming back. This about a week ago, Spence, was the first time I noticed that in the temple region. But you see how it like kind of angles back a little bit.
I'm not looking.
I was actually. So if you look back, right, like in the recession photo, I guess I would call it, it kind of angles. It's at an angle going back. On my left side, it's almost completely straight now, and on my right, it's not. And I'm a lefty, so I'm guessing that kind of has something to do with it. Where my hair, it's
about 95% of men will have more recession on the right side than they will the left. That's
okay. So that kind of makes sense,
normal.
Right?
Yeah, it's completely normal.
On the left side, it's almost completely straight on the side.
I'm seeing that.
On the right, it's a little bit more angled, but I mean, it's nothing compared to what it was. I mean, it was completely angled on both sides.
Okay, so my question is, did you show Jess?
Okay, so after I messaged. I think it was like 6 a.m. We were talking this morning about this.
Jesus, I'm up so early.
I said, "Do you want to see something?" She goes, "Yeah, what's up?" I sent her the before and I sent her the after. And what was your reaction? You're like, "Holy shit!" She goes, "Holy shit!"
Yeah.
She goes, "I had no idea it was like that."
There you go.
And it's only 3 months.
And it's only 3 months.
3.5, but
3.5. 3.5, yeah.
Yeah, I know. Now she's wishing that I gave you the penis pills.
I know, the penis pills would have been great. But, I mean, this is the first time that I've actually seen like a side-by-side on how it was. I was a little bit heavier there. My hair was just a little bit longer on top. But, I mean, if you look at just like the widow's peak you see on the older photo compared to the new one, the new one is like a completely straight hairline where looking at the other one, it's totally angled.
Well, I definitely saw a difference when I saw you in Vegas, for sure. And, you're a good responder. You're not having any adverse side effects. I mean, consider yourself lucky. And look, you may maintain the results that you've gotten so far for a decade. I mean, that's pretty amazing. I started to lose ground, I would say, after probably about 12 years in. I started to lose a little ground where I actually had to start painting my head. But look, I'm 50 years old. I'm going to be 50 years. Geez, I can't believe it. I'm going to be 50 years old in 2 months. The fact that I've been on this drug for 20 years and have been able to gimmick my hair the way that I can, at this age, I feel pretty lucky.
Yeah, and listen, if it wasn't for the show, God, who knows what my hair would be like right now?
Dude, you would be living at press even more than you are right now.
I'm just still looking at these pictures and I'm blown away. This is outstanding. As like the message I just sent to Andrew.
Well, here's what I really noticed when we were outside, like when we were in Vegas. I noticed like when we were under lights, there was like I guess about maybe a year ago, whenever you came here, at one point, I saw you under the light, and I was actually able to see the outline of the horseshoe. Like it was starting, it was like
starting, yeah.
Only an expert would really see that. And I was like, okay, well, maybe he is, but let's see what happens. I wasn't going to say anything as far as like, you need to get on this drug. But, if you keep complaining about it, I knew eventually you would do it yourself anyway. In Vegas, I didn't see that. It was like that miniaturization. It looks like you have more underground. There's more filler overall throughout your entire scalp. So it made a big difference.
And that makes sense. And being this early in, I mean, you still got a lot of improvement to come as far as the curve normally goes. It usually improves for approximately 2 years before it plateaus.
My goal is for Andrew Zarian to be able to do the blowout again on camera.
I'm gonna do a total blow on my hairline. You know what's funny, Spence? Like, I was looking at some old photos, when I was younger with my hairline.
Yeah.
And I don't think, I mean, honestly, I was looking at like my engagement photos, and my hairline looks better. I mean, the same or if not better than it was when I was 22, 23.
I mean, I guess it's possible. It's not going to be better, probably, because I really don't think, when I first met you, you had a completely solid, extremely youthful head of hair. And you were 25 when I met you the first time.
Yeah, so it's almost, I feel like it's almost there. And the thing that threw me off was when I would style my hair, there would be like stragglers just like falling in front of my head all the time.
Also, just the sheer size of your face, that makes such a difference too.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
No, honestly though. I mean, dude, I look at videos of me, even stuff that was done like 2 months ago. If I was drinking heavily that week, I look like a different person. My face is 3 times the size. So you had a combination of probably a little bit of weight, a lot of bloat because you were probably drinking a lot more back then, because we were drinking a lot and eating a lot of bullshit, and the slight recession. You put that together, you're a different person.
It does exasperate the situation.
Yeah, exactly.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking at videos now from, I guess, my honeymoon. I have it on YouTube. And, I mean, my hairline, I mean, it's good there, but I think it's better now, to be honest.
Well, here, this is, I think it's, you're a young guy, so I think this is a good representation of what can happen. Now, I also don't want people to be misled in any way, thinking that they're going to get the type of results that you have. Most guys don't really see a big difference in their hairline. It really works for most guys to slow the progression. And as far as regrowth, I've seen a lot of guys get a lot of regrowth in the crown. I was one of those guys, and I was also a guy, my voice just cracked, also one of those guys that had it definitely slowed the progression of my hairline recession, and I regrew some of my hairline. Probably, I don't know about to your degree, but it was pretty significant. I mean, it really. I went from the point of losing a lot of hair every day. Actually, even the sides of my hair were starting to become thin, to almost a complete reversal. And I noticed a major change at the 3-month mark. By 6 months, I was like, holy shit. I mean, this is a miracle drug.
Yeah.
See, and with me, I noticed after 9 months, the 3 hairs I still had left that were native,
right?
They didn't do anything.
Right.
No. In all seriousness, I didn't have much native hair on top of my scalp, but I did have some in the bottom half of my crown whorl,
right.
And those did thicken up. Now, I wasn't paying attention to it, like maybe Andrew was, or maybe you were, because I was just, I was going through my first repair transplant, and so that's what I was paying attention to. So it wasn't until my first follow-up 9 months later that it was pointed out that it was much better, and I looked at the picture and side by side, and it was an obvious improvement. Not to mention my donor hair, which I fully believe has some DHT sensitivity to it, also improved.
Okay, so that was going to be my next question. Will you see any improvement in the donor area?
You can.
And that's the thing, I mean, and that's why, and again, we're not physicians here, but I think it is a disservice to potential hair transplant patients to kind of steer them away from finasteride, especially for a doctor to do that. I think a doctor really has to tell them, even though I know a lot of doctors are kind of afraid or concerned to promote or push Propecia now because of all of the, ambulance chasers, quote unquote, or alleged ambulance chasers, I should say, who are out there, trying to nab these guys for, even, as Joe would say, a placebo effect, side effect. But a lot of guys are just kind of like shying away from talking about it a lot. But I think it does the patient a disservice, because I just don't think you should have a hair transplant unless you are somehow treating your hair loss medically. And the best way to do it these days, at least at this point, is either through finasteride or dutasteride.
And not just start the medication when you have the surgery. Actually, be on it and know how you react to it.
I'd say for at least 6 months. At least 6 months
minimum.
Yeah.
One, I'm on name brand Propecia.
It's so important, dude.
It is.
You actually asked me about that when you decided to get it, and I said you got to do name brand.
And you know what? From the progress that I've seen, the $100 a month, totally worth it. The second thing, I sent this to my doctor, the doctor that prescribed me Propecia.
Yeah.
He's an anti-aging doctor. He's in New York City and Jersey, Dr. Gonzalez. I sent him this result because he's on the medication himself.
Yeah.
And, when I went to him and, I told him what I wanted to do, he's like, listen, I would not prescribe something that I personally feel it would do harm. I've been on this medication for 2 years.
Right.
And the guy has a decent hairline. I mean, he's been on it. He preserved what he already has, and he's doing well with it. And I sent him the picture. His exact email back to me was, holy shit.
Yeah. That's everyone's. Your wife said that.
That was his response to me.
Yeah.
My wife said that. And, she's the biggest critic of them all. I mean, she did not think that I needed to go on this medication, did not want me to go on this medication, and she saw the result.
Common law's response was something like, holy fuck balls.
Yeah, I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
I sent it to her today.
Yeah.
And she goes, that's effing amazing.
Yeah.
Spencer showed me the pictures earlier. So, I mean, I've seen great progress with this.
Andrew wasn't good looking enough as it is.
And he lost 40 pounds.
Yeah, and he lost 40 pounds. Now he's got to have a fucking full head of hair.
If we thought we had a chance of competing, it just got flushed down the toilet.
Jesus
Thanks.
Christ.
I had breakfast with my friends. One of my good friends. She got pregnant, and I met the father to be for the first time. And we were talking, and
he's a Norwood.
I don't know. No. I mean, the guy had a good head of hair, right?
Yeah.
It was. I mean, I'm asking Jess. It wasn't bad. And the guy said something about his hair, and he's like, "Oh my God, I'm trying to keep this thing for the life of me."
Right.
And I looked. I'm like, why wouldn't you? I'm like, there's something you could do about that. And so the guy proceeded to tell me about how he was a steroid abuser, this guy. And for years, for almost a decade, he was a steroid abuser. I mean, tremendously jacked to the gills, and I mean, crazy steroid abuse. I mean, he was like 290, 5'11". And
Jesus.
the guy's telling me all about the steroids and how his testosterone level dropped, and he didn't think that his girlfriend or wife-to-be could get pregnant because his testosterone level was 120.
Right.
It should be between 750 and, let's say, 1,200, right? For a normal 29-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going on this whole thing about how he did steroids and how it ruined him. And I bring up Propecia to him, and he goes, "Oh, no." The guy goes, "Oh, no. I went online, and I saw what that stuff could do to you."
That's awesome.
And I looked at him, and I go, "Are you serious?" He goes, "Yeah, I went on these forums, and I went on this, and I saw that it'll do this, it'll do that." And I go, "You just told me that you've done every possible synthetic steroid known to man."
Yeah.
And now you're telling me that you're afraid of this prescription.
It's wild, man.
That is the funniest thing.
And he looks at me, and it was like a light bulb went off. He goes, "Yeah, you have a point." I'm like, "You abuse steroids." I'm like, "That's the worst thing you could ever do for your dick."
Yeah. Not only for your dick, for your possible tumor growth and
for everything
and everything, man.
The guy told me that now he can't even go on testosterone to bring it up because he gets blood clots all over his body.
Oh my God.
And he's on blood thinners, and he's on all this type of stuff because he did so much steroids, and he's 29 years old.
Yeah.
Oh, that's sad.
And it's ruined him.
I mean, you can get away with a couple of cycles in your life, and it's not a good idea to do, but a lot of young guys do it. But the guys that stay on it for a really long time, I mean, I know a couple of guys, and you can even see it in their skin, not just their body skin, but their facial skin. Everything kind of changes because they're not producing their own testosterone anymore.
No, not anymore. And I have to educate the guy. I'm like, listen, you have to see a doctor. Forget about a major endocrinologist. You have to see a guy that's going to work with you and try to fix this on you because, like, you know, he's like, I'm depressed. I've gained so much weight, and he's not a fat guy, but like you can see, there's a lot of muscle there, but he's a shadow of who he was.
So why don't you hook him up with Gonzalez?
I'm going to. I already did. I already did. But so when it came to Finasteride, he goes, well, I'm afraid that it'll cause, you know, he's like, I've heard about the sexual side effects. I go, you've abused steroids for 50,000 people. From what you're telling me, have you had sexual side effects? He goes, not really. I go, then you're fine.
And I
highly doubt you're going to have any kind of problem.
The truth is, you know, he may actually have a little bit more free-flowing testosterone if he does inhibit the conversion of testosterone to DHT.
That's the way I always looked at it.
Yeah.
That's
but
why
you know what? The guy knew about DHT. He knew about all this stuff, so he's done his homework. And I had another conversation with a guy on Thursday. I messaged you Thursday. I was a little loaded when I did.
Yeah.
And you asked me if I was drunk.
Yeah.
I was sitting next to a guy, and we were talking about testosterone.
Well, because every other character was like an asterisk or like a percent sign.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I know. It was a rough night.
That's a good indicator.
He's like, you know, I would go on Propecia, but I'm afraid that it's going to mess me up. He goes, also, I don't do the cream testosterone because it goes deep into your DHT. I'm like, that's not true. You can't go deep into DHT.
Yeah. Jesus, people are so...
Like, whoever told you that is out of his mind. So, like, it's amazing. And this guy was a steroid abuser, too. I mean, the guy is a tremendously fit bodybuilder type.
Right.
And that was the part that amazed me, where these guys for decades have been abusing steroids and are on testosterone, on every human growth, and they're fine with that. But the second they hear about Propecia, they believe everything that's on the internet. Now, I'm not saying it's not true what you're reading. I'm saying as someone that's on the medication, and I don't care if I'm considered a Merck agent or whatever these guys want to call me, it's a fraction of the percentage of men that are on this medication.
Well, what I can say for sure is that there's certainly a mass hysteria effect that's taken place. And it doesn't mean that these guys who have complained about side effects, especially the original, like the OG long-term side effect guys online, there's no doubt in my mind that this actually occurred. They were part of this unique.
It's mass hysteria.
But they were part of this unique phenomenon, and that now everyone who touches the drug thinks it's going to happen. So I totally understand it.
Before they touch it, almost. I'm honestly, and if I'm lying, may I be strucken right now. Everybody that I speak to,
I don't know. Is that a word, strucken?
I was wondering. I was looking at. I was googling it. Strucken.
Stricken. It's stricken.
Just said that. Stricken or strucken?
It's stricken.
Stricken. I didn't mean.
But you would probably express yourself like, you know, may I be struck by lightning?
Or struck.
May I be struck by lightning at this moment. Everybody that says it, everybody that I bring this medication up to, automatically goes, yeah, but I've heard bad stuff about this.
Yeah.
Look,
that's the problem. And the thing is, with guys like these bodybuilders, it's almost like a hypocrisy through ignorance because they're not thinking it through, right?
Look, that's well said, actually. Listen, this is the thing. You know, I really believe this. I've been a guy who I've abused myself over the years. I've eaten like a pig. I definitely enjoy a couple of drinks every once in a while, or sometimes more than once in a while. I've let myself get really fat and bloated at times, and I've been well over 215, which I should probably be like 180. But for whatever reason, I stay pretty, underneath the fat, I have a lot of muscle. It just kind of stays there. And I'm almost 50 years old. I definitely think that there's some correlation, at least for me, that I have slightly higher testosterone levels because I've been on this drug for 20 years. I think that's a possibility. What do you think, Joe Tillman?
I think that's a very high possibility. I've always looked at this as, what's happening is free flowing testosterone is being converted to DHT. So if you get something in between the two factors that cause this, which is 5-alpha reductase type 2 and testosterone, preventing it from being converted, then you logically would have more free flowing testosterone through your system. And even though, as you get older, you have less testosterone overall, I think that as long as you're on the medication, you would still logically have more than someone else in the same category of age as you. So, I
take off my shirt. I'm like an old wrestler.
Okay, let me just say this though. Let me just say that I'm also on testosterone for the last 2 months.
Yes, but I don't know if that had any effect on your hair, any positive effect on your hair. But it definitely made
bioidentical testosterone.
It's definitely made you look really good. I'll tell you that.
Yeah,
I mean, it's cut me up tremendously, but
it's ridiculous. It's actually ridiculous. When I saw you in Vegas, it was just like, dude. I mean, really?
And you're taking this? Why? I mean, were you diagnosed with low testosterone naturally?
He has low T.
Okay.
Yeah, I have low T.
How much are you taking?
Well, I'm not taking much. I don't want to say on the air, but
okay. But are you using the top like the cream, or are you using the injectable?
It's a cream. No, it's a cream. It's specially compounded for this doctor, and
he rubs it under his nutsack. From what I understand.
No. In my inner thigh. You can't have it get close to your testicles.
Right.
And then, did you start this at the same time as you were starting Propecia?
No, I started Propecia in December. I started this in February.
Okay. Interesting.
No, I started this in January. I
mean, it would be interesting to note. I mean, maybe it is possible. Maybe that's why he's getting such amazing results so quickly. I guess that's a possibility. It doesn't seem it doesn't seem like that would occur because you're increasing your testosterone. So,
and everything I've heard is that when you do take testosterone supplements, you should naturally up your intake of Propecia if you're taking it to help fight the additional testosterone levels being potentially converted into higher levels of DHT.
Yeah, that's the thing. I see what's happening to his body, and I have to tell you, I'm at a point now where I can probably it would be reasonable for me to supplement my testosterone. But
I mean, right now I'm a little bloated up, but I sent Spencer a picture from, I guess, 3 weeks ago. And I mean, it was tremendous.
But I
the abs, my chest has gotten gigantic.
I would rather be, in my mind right now, at least at this stage of my life, I'd rather be a little old in the body and keep my hair than to take something that could possibly affect what I've saved for the last 20 years. So I'm not there yet. Maybe when I'm 60, I'll get myself on the juice. But right now, I'll deal with a little bit of the old man bod. You know
what's amazing? Like you see people and people's reaction to this, right? And I hate the stereotype, but generally the reactions I've seen that are anti-Propecia, like running the shower, and someone goes, "Okay, guys, we get it. Finasteride works. We get it." But I mean, the guy's obviously joking, but the general reaction that I've seen is outside of North America that is negative.
Oh yeah.
Well, here's the thing. It's interesting that I know this guy's joking. I know this guy's joking in the chat room, but the truth is, there's not enough positive talk.
No, not at all.
About this drug and how many lives it's actually helped. The guys that go to their doctor and get a script for Propecia and move on with their lives and save their hair, they're not out there pounding the pavement, the online pavement, so to speak, or the message forums, discussing their success with Propecia. It just doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way.
I'd be the first one to say it doesn't work. I would be the first one to come on the air and say, "Listen, guys, I'm having this side effect and that side effect, and I'm not having sex, and I have no urge." I would be the first one to say all of this.
And here's the thing: you're talking about outside the country, like places, especially like Italy. The guys in the forums in Italy, it's a rare occurrence for them to actually be on the medication, because in Italy it's a much bigger deal socially. Like in the entire social consciousness is completely against this kind of thing because of the machoism that Italian guys got to have, right? And so even the mention of something that might have this as being an issue, that's contagious enough.
Yeah, it's
just talking about it.
And you know what? Listen, the truth is, and the hair transplant guys will, I mean, in my view, it's better for business in general for people to be on finasteride because in the end, there's going to be longer lasting, great results.
Of course.
But I mean, they have nothing to gain by promoting finasteride.
No, they got everything gained not to promote.
That's right.
It means that they're coming back for more work.
Exactly. So when I read that, from some posters who say that, look, these doctors are making money hand over fist, they're poisoning people. They're not making any money from finasteride.
No.
They're writing a script. That's it. They're trying to help you out. They're hair loss doctors.
Well, there's two ways to look at it. I mean, the hair transplant doctors are writing the prescription with the full knowledge, especially if it's near the time of surgery, that it could enhance the overall final result itself. Right. I mean, if you're dealing with a diffuse thinner, you shave it down, you go in between, you got the new hairs growing from the transplant and the miniaturized hairs being reversed from the medication. That 5,000 graft result or 3,000 graft result looks like 50% more than what was actually put in there because there is 50% more.
That's right. Listen, there's not one person in my personal life or who has contacted me directly who's decided to take finasteride because either they've listened to the program or they read about it on their own. The people that contact us in general have positive experiences. Now, there is a guy that calls the show once in a while that he took one pill and his dick was numb, and then he lowered his dosage, and then he was okay. But now he's concerned about wrinkles or something. Whatever. He's reading the formula.
I'm going to tell you something. I was there that day when he called. That was the first day I took the medication.
Yeah.
There were two calls that day. One was him, and I mean that's just insanity. By one pill he took and his dick was numb. I mean, that's the most insane thing I've ever heard, and I'm sure it's psychosomatic in my opinion. Number two, you had that other guy that called in that was a bodybuilder. He's a regular listener, and he was talking about how, now, he's probably in his mid to late 30s, and since he's been on the medication, he's noticed that his muscles have gotten softer and he can't get the gains. Guess what, dude? You're getting old, and that's what happens. I can't run a 6 mile. I can't run a 6 minute mile anymore.
Yeah.
So what are you trying to say?
Jesus.
That's what happens.
Listen, it is what happens. I understand that.
It is what happens, but at the same time, we can't dismiss.
The guys that go out drinking, they drink, a half a bottle of scotch, and they come back and they try to bang their wives, and they can't get it up, and they go, you know what? It's the Propecia. Fuck it.
Look, I could blame my breasts on Propecia. You know what I mean? But I didn't grow these things when I was 30. When I first started taking them, these things grew over time.
I'm going to tell you something. I'll give you a great example.
I don't have breasts, by the way. I'm just joking. They're a little bit.
I was going to say
they're a little. They're a little.
Burly.
They're a little.
You're burly.
They're a little fuller than a little softer than my pecs used to be, but that's partially because of fat. Yeah, go ahead.
Before I go, because I got to go, and Dustin's giving me the look. She's giving me the high sign right now.
Yeah.
When I went on the medication, right? And I was at your house when I took it for the first time.
Yeah.
And the last day that I was there, I had a sharp pain in my testicle.
Yeah.
I could have said, "Holy shit, it's the medication."
Well, it probably was actually.
Probably was.
Yeah. Because that happens, especially when you first take it.
I had a sharp pain.
Yeah.
And I thought about all the other times that has happened. I went and I did MMA training with common law that day.
Yeah.
Could it have been that I pulled something?
That's true.
Or could it have been the medication? It's more likely that I pulled something.
Right, but
the fact of the matter is, it's something. A lot of these side effects, before you go and you blame the medication, which it's very well possibly could be the medication. Look at your life. Look at everything else that's incorporated in your life.
Well,
how old are you? What medication are you on? How much do you drink? Do you do drugs? Are you happy with your life?
This guy, I think it's Briz. I can't even see the chat room. Said that Joe Rogan mentioned on his podcast that Propecia side effects basically were a sure thing. And that's interesting. Listen, I like Joe Rogan as well. Joe had a bad hair transplant experience.
Yeah, he's bitter. He's bitter towards the whole hair thing.
Of course.
Well, and I understand that. And, Well, I don't want to say too much, but I do know that I think that Joe could have been repaired if he chose to listen to advice, but he happens to look good with the shaved head.
I think Joe should stick to doing MMA commentary before talking about any kind of medical advice. I think all the peyote he's done over the last couple of years has really affected his judgment.
Well, he
there
made
an argument for that,
but he made a couple of bad decisions with the work that he had. That's it, and I can understand why he would be bitter. But I have to say that his scar in general, I mean, compared to some scars that I've seen, it's not that bad.
It's not bad at all.
The work itself was not great. It did really served to me. It didn't really serve much of a purpose because it didn't really enhance his appearance at the time, and he ended up having to shave it off anyway. So I understand why he's upset for sure. And I
gotta go.
That's his experience. Okay, man. Listen, thanks for the call.
All right.
See you, Andrew.
Next week I'm gonna come. So next week I'm gonna come on with the densitometer and I'm gonna do a whole thing.
Okay, good. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Take
Congratulate
care.
Jess,
See
too.
you later, guys.
Bye.
Later, Joe.
All right.
Ciao.
All right. This guy's been holding on for a long time, so I'm going to take his call. I know that it's late, but I'll take his call real quick, and then we'll call him night.
Okay.
Hey, man, you're on the air. Who's this, and where are you calling from?
Hey, Spencer. It's Carl. I spoke with you probably about a month ago. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you, Carl?
Good, good. Yeah, we spoke about the A-cell and the PRP and Dr. Prasad. Remember?
That's
you
right.
mentioned the four that. Yeah.
That's right. He wanted to charge. He wanted to charge $4,500, I think, for the procedure.
Good Lord.
Yeah. And I did pay for it. I actually got it done. But yeah, it's good that Andrew was on talking with you. It's really good to hear you guys. So I'll just recap that I'm in a restaurant. I'm about 47, close to your age. And I've been.
You know what's fucked up? When I hear someone say they're 47 and they're close to my age.
Or I'm your age.
No. You're right though. You're not my age. You are almost 3 years younger than me. But I'm just saying that's reality right there. Go ahead.
Still older than me.
I know, definitely older than Joe Tillman. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, by like 6 months. Now, how old are you, Joe? 45?
By 2 years. Yeah, 45.
Yeah. Or alias, as I was on your in the chat a couple of weeks ago when you guys were having phone trouble. My alias is I got to say low, not in it, since I'm in a restaurant. Derek Stigler.
Oh.
So Joe Tillman probably remembers it, right, Joe? You probably remember that.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yes. For us, lover of 80s, take care, 80s adult films.
Nice.
That moniker, yeah, I can appreciate that. But, listen, I caught this tail end because I got disconnected earlier with the phone with Andrew and you guys talking about Propecia. And you're right, Spencer. This is, the bold truth, everything you're doing. It's not so much about the Propecia show. It's just understanding of this drug and what it can do and what it cannot.
That's right.
And at 47, I think I've been taking it since I was about 38, 39. And I think you recall I had got a transplant on the right side of my hair was receding, and my transplant I went to in 2007, 2008 to the Bosley folks.
Right.
And I know that's because we talked about because of their marketing. I'm sitting home, my hair is receding on one side, and I'm going crazy. And naturally, I walk into a Bosley clinic. Now,
sure.
if I had the knowledge before, listening to you guys, Joe Tillman and that, I probably would have went to Dr. Bernstein, right? Or Bernstein or Bernstein. Because I live in New York City, here in Queens, New York. I would have definitely gone to see him.
Yeah. I mean, you're in Queens. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of good doctors. You have Feller out in the island, and you got 4 or 5 really good doctors in New York.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I work in the city, so in Midtown, so it's not a big deal.
Right.
The Dr. Bernstein, I think he's over there on Park Avenue or 55th Street, right?
I forget. He moved. I think he's on 55th.
55th, right?
Yeah.
So I'd have no problem seeing him because Prasad is not too far. He's right around the corner. He's on 60th and by Park Avenue,
Right.
Dr. Prasad, who did my ACell and PRP. But the whole thing, and I'll just recap real quick what I said about a month ago, was I went to Bosley in 2007, receding on one side. I got the transplant, and I don't know, and I know it's late, so I'm going to say
It's okay.
it was an FUE or an FUT. I do not know.
I could basically guarantee it was an FUT.
Yeah.
Okay, so an FUT. That's good to know.
You have
around that time.
Do you have a strip scar in the back of your scalp?
I probably do, but I can't see it because I have a lot of hair back there.
Well, that's good.
But I believe I do.
You can probably feel it.
I have a lot of hair. Yeah, I wear my hair really out, and the thing about what happened with me was that I caught a lot of the stuff early. In a sense, I remember when I was receding only on one side, and that freaked me out just as much as not with the other side not progressing. You know, it's like, whoa, well, do I have some sort of disease or
sure.
Am I ill? Because it's only happening on one side, so it freaked me out even more. Because I said if it happened on both sides of the recession, then they were all just natural, balding and aging.
But that's really common though. So
yeah. So I didn't know. I didn't have the knowledge back then. I didn't have the bald truth. I didn't have Joe Tillman and all these resources back in 2000, 2008. I wasn't listening to you. I didn't know you existed, and somehow
how dare you
within the last year. Yeah, how dare I know.
So basically, you lived in a cave. Just kidding.
Pretty much, Joe. Pretty much. But
I mean, I was on WNEW. I was on WNEW for like 4 years. I was on WOR, WABC.
Oh, really? Well, I told you I work for ABC right now. I told you I work for Toby. And I do production for the Good Morning America. And
I was on WABC radio from 1998 till 1999.
In the city?
In the city, yeah. When in Madison Square Garden.
Oh, okay. Wow. That's interesting. That's awesome. But I guess I don't know how I found you, but somehow I found you within the last year. And I started tuning in and listening to your program, listening to you with Joe Tillman and the rest of your colleagues, and obviously informative.
The rest of the Rat Pack.
Go ahead.
The rest of the Rat Pack, yeah.
The rest of the Rat. That's exactly. Listen, I was going to say I'm also being a New Yorker, a Stern fan, and I know what happened with you and Stern and that whole hair thing. But I think it's just not only the bold truth interesting, but it's also a little comical with the whole Joe from Staten Island and the Bauman thing, how you were expressing yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, I really, that was really interesting. But this is more on myself and what is happening with the Propecia and whatnot. So I had the Bosley FUT you said I would have in 2007, 2007. And then I went on Propecia, and I've been on Propecia since 2007. And just within about a year ago, the people from Bosley said, listen, go, this will save you some bucks, get a generic, and it'll save you a lot of money. And
bad move,
be okay.
dude.
Totally bad move. And I just want to say this to you, and I hope your listeners and Andrew is listening, maybe just, bad. I totally regressed, within 4 months, I started to see the horseshoe effect.
Oh, man,
okay,
I'm sorry.
And it
That's too bad.
really freaked me out. Really freaked me out. And I was doing so well. I'm going to be very honest with you. I have a full set of hair. I mean, it's really good. When I got the transplant, and my hair is very coarse, and I got the transplant, and I went on the Propecia, my hair was just spectacular. It just changed my life overnight. The recession in the front with the transplant, along with the Propecia, really enforced my hair, and just really looked great. And the confidence was back, and people noticed, And I remember an ex-girlfriend I ran into she was literally going into my hair, pulling to see if it was real or not. It was very noticeable after, the transplant and being on Propecia after a year.
Sure.
It takes a while to kick in. And it was amazing. Amazing.
Well, let me just tell you this. That I was in San Francisco with Andrew Zarian, Common Law, and Jess. And I don't know if you heard the story, but I ran out of my Propecia. And I actually, I take ProScar.
Yes, I heard it, yeah.
And I didn't take it for I was going on 2 weeks. I'm like, holy shit, I forgot to bring my pill. Got the drug, and they gave me generic. I wouldn't take it. I had to drive across town to another drugstore to get the brand name. And that's in San Francisco.
Which is not an easy thing to do.
Right. And I did it. Because I will not take that. Will not take the generic.
Every time you tell that story, I have visions of like O.J. Simpson with the Samsonite commercials running over the running through the airport, jumping over.
And
running through the airport, absolutely.
And if there were no cabs, I would have done that.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's amazing that and again, knowledge is everything. And I wish I'm going to tell you guys, it took. And I just want your listeners to understand this. When I went on generic, I started to see the recession after 4 months. It was horrible.
It's brutal.
I know for a fact that being on Propecia has held my hair. It is fought off with the DHT, the whole process of that. I know from a personal experience that it really, really, really has really helped my hair and fought it off. And and I guess I'm you guys know this, and your listeners listen regularly. I listen, and I'm realizing it's just like anything in life, whether you're sick with a certain ailment, and if you're able to treat that ailment as soon as possible, you have major promise in your hair. And I think that Am I right or wrong?
No, you're absolutely 100%. And that's the thing. Early intervention is the key for anything. And that's why I think, and we actually have to go because Andrew Zarian's giving me the high sign because he has another show that has to be on the air. But I will say that your message is very important. Do not fuck with it. There are guys out there that start with Finasteride, generic Finasteride, and they seem to be doing well. Great. Don't change it. But if you start on brand name, do not try to save a couple of bucks and make that change because there are so many stories, thousands, just like yours, who have contacted us over the years, who Joe Tillman has met in person, who's had to deal with this shit. It is really important. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Do not mess with it. And I am a brand whore when it comes to Finasteride.
And can I just say one more thing? I know Andrew is rushing you off.
Yeah.
When I went to Bosley to defend this, and I'm not going to say the other person's doctor's name.
Yeah.
I may have mentioned earlier. When I talked to the two doctors about, hair specialists or whatever, and Bosley, another one, they insisted and said, no, you're wrong. There is no difference.
Yeah.
And I told them, no, you're wrong. I know my hair. I noticed the difference immediately.
In my view, they are providing you with typical information that they get from drug companies, and it's just not true. In my view,
absolutely.
Listen, Carl.
Absolutely.
Your name's Carl, right? I'm sorry. I speak to so many people.
That's exactly right.
All right, Carl. Listen, thank you so much for the call. I'm glad. So you're back on track now, right?
I'm basically back on track. I'm back on track taking Propecia for almost about 8 to 9 months, and I basically have all of my hair back. I'm not kidding about it.
That's a great end to the phone call, man. I appreciate it. I'm so glad that you figured it out and you got back on brand name. I always appreciate the call, Carl. Call back next week. We'll be on the air live.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Have a good evening. You too, Joe Tillman.
All right.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys.
You take care.
Take care.
Have a good evening.
All right.
Yes, sir. Bye.
Joe, go ahead.
Sorry, he said something interesting. It's if you're on Finasteride and it's working, then don't change it. However, I think that someone's on the generic Finasteride and it's working, but then at some point they get what some people refer to as the 5-year lull, where supposedly I don't know where this comes from. After 5 years, it suddenly stops working.
Yeah.
don't just stop taking it. Switch to name brand and see if maybe there's some sort of issue there.
That's actually a great suggestion, and that's
always go back to the basics.
Yeah. All right, listen, Joe Tillman, that's again, great suggestion. I always appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us, and I know that our listeners love hearing from you, and I know you got to go as well. Andrew Zarian has given me the high sign, so we got to go, so I'm going to pot you down. Thanks a lot.
Yep, thanks for having me on.
You got it. Take care. Guys, the website's thebaldtruth.com, ihrs.org for the International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons. If you're considering surgery, please check out ihrs.org first. Great place to start to do your due diligence, but still be careful. You can always be fucked up by surgery. Realize that. There are no guarantees. It is cosmetic surgery, even if you go to the best. So just do your homework. If you want to check out basic information on hair loss and the hair loss industry, go to AmericanHairLoss.org. Again, I just mentioned the website, but thebaldtruth.com for the archives of this broadcast. Until next time, be strong, God bless, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for any inconvenience you may have been put to prior to the programme, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if you could now leave by the exits at the rear, that'd be splendid. Thank you. Good night.